Hi, gang. I just wanted to take you through a quick step-by-step of creating, any simple graph that you need to make, whether it be a bar graph, a circle graph, pie chart, or a time series or a time plot, however you want to call it. First, it's important to know when we're looking at a set of data, what's the best way of displaying the data. Obviously, if I'm looking at what I'm looking at in this set of data, I'm looking at book genre and the total amount of books that they sold in that genre in the month of April. Obviously, I don't want to, while it includes time, I'm not going to create a time plot out of this. So it's important that we know what we're looking at. We're looking at qualitative variables here, which is these genres, and we should know that we either want to create a bar graph, or if we wanted to see, the proportion of all the books that were sold, we could create a circle graph out of this. That would be up to you at that point, but it's important that we choose the correct one, to start with. So once we do that, I mean, that's pretty much the biggest decision that we need to make. After this, it's pretty simple. All I'm going to do to create my bar graph, I'm going to create a bar graph out of this. So I'm going to go ahead and select my data that I want to include in the graph. I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to look at my different graphs. Now, we want to create a column chart out of this, or a bar graph. I don't care whether you make a 2D or 3D. I don't care if you make it horizontal or vertical. That's completely up to you. That really does not matter to me. So from there, I'm just going to keep it pretty simple for the sake of being simple. I'm going to create a 2D. Yep, very exciting. Very, very, very exciting, right? But there it is. Now, I had this ordered from greatest to least. If these were not in particular order and you wanted to see it as a Pareto chart from your highest value or the highest frequency to the lowest frequency, all you would need to do is select your data and come up here to the sort and filter and sort it from largest to smallest. I'm already sorted from largest to smallest. I'll sort smallest to largest to show you how the chart changes. I'm going to go ahead and click sort, and notice it reordered them from least to greatest. I want them from greatest to least, so I'm going to go ahead and change it back to largest to smallest. Always click expand, do not click continue. It will not take the titles with the numbers. And there we go. The only other thing we really need to do here is, if we click on your bar graph, is we want to format this thing. All right, so I'm going to go to chart design. I'm going to select the title. I'm going to double click the title and just give it a new title. Maybe we say total book sales per genre for April. Maybe that's our title that we want. But it's important to include a title. You must include a title. You'll lose points, in my class for that. And then from there, the only other thing we don't have that I do want to include are axis titles. So to add those, they've kind of changed this over the last couple of years. If we go up to add chart element, I'm going to go down to axis titles. I'm going to choose primary horizontal, and it gives us one. Now it's labeled axis title. I'm going to change this to book genre. And I'm going to go back up to add chart element, axis title again, primary vertical, and we'll say number of sales. Boom. Now again, after that or before that, you can choose whatever format you want. I don't really particularly care if you want to include, the numbers with it. The world is kind of your oyster there. If you want to change the colors of the bars, I'll let you play with that. You can double click them and you can change them, make them all different colors. That's completely up to you. But in terms of simplicity, get it on there. Make sure we can see what we need to see and go about your business. So there's a bar graph. Now, let's say we were looking at the proportion of how a college is, the number of students at a college and the majors they're taking. Maybe I think there's 6 different majors here. And we're kind of looking at, the proportion of what students are taking what overall. And we want to create a pie chart in this case. So again, very, very simple. I'm going to go ahead and select my data. I'm going to go and insert. I'm going to click the pie chart. I always like the 3D pie, so that's what I'm going to make. And boom, there we go. All right. Now, I'm not a big fan of this one because, let's say you have a black and white printer and you're going to print this off, it'd be kind of hard to know what these are all going to match up to because they're all going to be in black or grayscale. So, sometimes it might be a good idea to kind of find one that includes, maybe the percentages or some sort of labels. They've actually created more and more of these, over the last few years of options that you have. You can expand this. I think it will help spread it out a little bit. There we go. So again, you can kind of do what you want there, but it's also important that we choose a chart title, and this would be, breakdown of college majors, yada yada, whatever you want to call it. All right. You can do a 3D, you can do a 2D, you can change the colors of the pie. You can do whatever you want after that. But again, the most important thing is that you can get it on there, it makes sense, and we can kind of see in this case that the highest percentage, or the major that students are taking the most are in computers, and it looks like engineering and humanities is kind of backing those up, so on and so forth. That sciences is the lowest, blah blah blah. As far as a time plot or a time series, this one's kind of cool. So this was looking at between 1992 and 2012, the winner of the 100-meter dash and the times in which they ran it, and we can get kind of an idea of what's happening with those times as the years went by. So let's say you were only interested in the women's. So you could go ahead and click the year in the women's. You could do an insert, and I'm going to look for 2D line. And that's not what I wanted it to look like. Let's try it this way. Let me delete that. What if I just select the seconds? Let's try that again. There we go. So we can kind of see what's happened with the time. Let's say you weren't real crazy about this axis. Let's say you wanted it to be between 10 seconds and 11 seconds. So if you double click on the axis, you can change that. Maybe you want that to be 10 seconds. Maybe the maximum is 11. Okay. And if you click out of it, it'll kind of move some things around a little bit. You're like, I didn't really like what I did there. You can undo it, and it'll take you back to where you are. You can do this. You can make this the minimum 0 seconds if you wanted to. And we're not going to see much of a fluctuation there because everything was in the 10-second range. But it does give you an idea of how those runners compared. All right. You can change the major and the minor units. Okay. So the major units, it's going by 0.1 from 10 to 11. The minor, I don't really mess with the minor too much. It's 0.02. I don't really know how that's gonna change, but you're more welcome to play around with it and mess with it. The other thing I haven't figured out with time plots in terms of the years is getting the years on the x-axis, and I'm not really sure how to make that happen. If I can figure that out, I will let you guys know at a later date. But let's say you wanted to compare male to female. So you want to have them both on here and see how do the women compare to the men. So all you'd have to do is select the two columns that you wanted, the women and the men's, insert, and there you go. So you have, they give you series 1 and series 2. I wonder if, let me try this because, again, this has changed a little bit. They seem to change this a little bit every year. But if I choose the titles, let's see if it at least gives us a label. There we go. So we have the women's in seconds is in blue, the men's is in red. You can change the color of the lines. You can change the axis if you wanted to. So maybe we don't want this to go from 8.5 to 11.5. Maybe we want to make it a little more, what am I doing here? Options. Maybe we want to go between 9 seconds and 11 seconds. And again, we can change the chart title, so on and so forth. All right. So there's just a really fairly brief tutorial on how to create those three things. When you're asked to create them, whether it be this year, whether it be next year, Excel is always a good option. Another good option too is Google Sheets. Google Sheets does a really nice job. It actually makes the changing the different axes things in terms of the titles and formatting. It's actually, I think, a little easier to do in Google Sheets. But I just tend to stick with Excel because that's what I've used for years and years and years. And they kind of like to throw little curveballs at us every now and then with different places and different things or different ways to format. So do your best with these. Good luck with them and enjoy.